Dolf, nice to have you over here. Welcome. Thank you very much. It's our pleasure. My long time friend from heads up meetings, etc. Dolf Gielen is really contributing a lot to this transition, and so I'm very happy to meet him years ago. Now he will tell us about very important thing, decarbonizing industry, because we are talking about climate neutral cities, 100 cities or 112 cities in Europe, and global transformation. So we know that without decarbonizing industry, we cannot go further. Dolf, the word is yours. Sorry, we are 6 minutes late, but we will continue 6 minutes in the lunch break, so we will not limit your time, because you will give us very valuable information. Thanks you for accepting to be here and contribute and share your experience. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanay, and it's always a great pleasure to join these interesting discussions. And I'm happy today to speak about a topic which is close to my heart, that is the decarbonization of industry sectors, which is a topic which has been on the agenda for a long time, but the progress to date has been limited, but that may change. And the reason is, there's several reasons, in fact. One reason is that the urgency of decarbonization of the whole economy has become much more important. And if you want to decarbonize the economy, you have to decarbonize also the industry sectors. And the problem was always the issue of industry competitiveness and potential carbon leakage. And for example, in a European context, the carbon border adjustment mechanisms, which are currently being, let's say, discussed and implemented, offer a pathway how to deal with that issue. So in terms of the technology options, you can split them in a number of ways. One way is to say how to reduce the use of fossil fuels, how to also recycle the car. I mean, this is from a carbon perspective. So how to reduce use of fossil carbon, how to recycle, let's say, renewable carbons or biomass, how to reuse the CCS, the CO2 with CO2 capture and use, and also for biomass, or to store it, the CO2 underground, so CCS. Industry is quite diverse, but the bulk of the industrial energy use is related to a limited number of energy-intensive commodities. And I'll talk about a few of these commodities. Industrial emissions mitigation is also a little bit different from the other sectors in a sense that the product, the materials that are being produced, they can also be shipped or recycled or substituted. So through that, you have a number of options available for the industry sector, which are not available, say, in transport or in the building sector. And that offers additional potential. Now, what sectors do matter? Here are some numbers for some key commodities and their energy use and their CO2 emissions. So iron and steel is a very important sector, accounts for about 10% of global CO2 emissions, energy and process CO2 emissions. You see that the chemical and petrochemical is also important, but its importance in energy terms is in fact even higher than in CO2 terms. The reason is that a lot of carbon is stored in plastics and in fibers, and at the moment only a fraction of that carbon is released when the waste plastics, for example, are incinerated, but a lot still ends up in disposal sites. So in fact, overall, longer term, that sector is even more important. And then cement, not so important in energy use terms, but because of the process CO2 emissions. Its CO2 emission impact is quite significant. And then aluminium is a sector which uses a lot of electricity. But the CO2 intensity of electricity is, of course, very country specific. And at the moment, about half of the global production is in China, and of the primary aluminium, and that's where the bulk of the emissions arise. So we looked repeatedly at what can be done in these different sectors. We look at how will the reference scenario emissions develop. That's what you see on the left side here of this slide. And then we look what can be done to reduce these emissions. So we published a report, Reaching Zero with Renewables, in 2020, and there we concluded that the important role of renewables is a bit underestimated. We think that renewables can contribute nearly half of the decarbonization needs, and that is through a combination of renewable power, additional electrification with renewable power, and direct use of renewables. And that is then supplemented with efficiency measures and with CCS. Earlier this year, we issued a new edition of our World Energy Transitions Outlook. We also have a 1.5 degree pathway. It has roughly the same breakdown, but there is maybe one difference. We've even increased the share of CCS, and especially the biomass CCS in industry is an additional option we looked at. So if you include that with renewables, the share, overall share of renewables in the emission mitigation is even closer to 60%. So quite significant in the total decarbonization of the global economy. And so renewable power has a key role to play. We see full decarbonization of the power sector in the next 3 decades, and especially solar PV and wind have a key role there to play. So we go to power systems with more than 60% variable renewables, and that is only possible if you have a lot more flexibility in the power system. Demand side response will be critical, and industry has a key role to play in providing that demand side response. So, for example, we're talking aluminium smelters that don't operate anymore with base load, but that really adjust their activity to the availability of this variable electricity. So there's also at the moment a lot of studies ongoing on how to make that happen. What kind of intermediate products do you need to store if you really want to activate that flexibility potential? Hydrogen also has a key role to play in decarbonizing these industry sectors. So we see significant growth of global hydrogen production, especially green hydrogen production. we see globally more than 600 million tons of hydrogen being produced 2050, 2/3 of that being green. And the amount of electricity you need for that volume is roughly equal to today's total global electricity production. It gives you a sense of how significant that is. The graph on the right shows you the importance of direct electrification in industry in brown. So that you go from 9,000 terawatt hours to around 13,000 terawatt hours electricity consumption in industry. But you see the huge growth from 0 to 21,000 terawatt hours of electricity used for hydrogen production. And then the pie chart on the right, on the left, shows that the bulk of that hydrogen, in fact, is going to industry. So that is going to, for example, to ammonia production, that is going to methanol production, that is going to iron production, and also for process heat, various processes. So hydrogen plays a key role in decarbonizing industry sectors. Now I want to go a little bit deeper on 3 of these examples, so on ammonia, methanol, and steel. So on ammonia, we released an renewable ammonia innovation outlook 2 weeks ago, together with the Ammonia Energy Association. You can find it on our website. So ammonia today is an important industrial commodity. There's around 200 million tons produced every year. Around 15% of that is traded internationally. And today, the vast majority of ammonia is produced from natural gas. In China, also coal is being used. And that ammonia production is a significant source of energy use and of CO2 emissions. Around 0.5 gigaton of CO2 is emitted every year. And so there are interesting opportunities now to use green hydrogen produced from renewable electricity used for water electrolysis to produce also renewable ammonia. There's significant activity in this field at the moment. And so this is not, in principle, this is not a new technology. So the use of electricity was the dominant form of ammonia production at the beginning of the century, but the last century, but it was outcompeted by production from natural gas reforming. That is changing again because of the climate benefits of this electricity-based production. And there is now a significant uptake of this let's say, green ammonia production. So we looked at the market trends. We expect there will be around about 15-30 million tons of the electricity-based ammonia production by 2030, so 15 million tons by 2030. Total pipeline around 70 million tons of renewable ammonia manufacturing capacity. It's already being installed. So there is the NEOM project in Saudi Arabia. There are several projects in Oman. There was a recent announcement of 2 large projects in Egypt along the Suez Canal in cooperation with the UAE. And there's a lot of capacity that is being considered, for example, in Australia. So all places with low cost renewable electricity potential that want to use that to make ammonia as a commodity, and that ammonia then can be shipped worldwide at relatively low cost. So this is a clear trend. And today, the bulk of the ammonia is used for fertilizer. 85% of all ammonia is going into nitrogen fertilizer. Going forward, there are new markets emerging. One of them is the market for shipping fuel. And another key market is ammonia as a clean energy carrier that can be shipped and then is perhaps again reconverted into hydrogen for other applications. And that's what you see illustrated in this graph. So you see the growth, nearly a fourfold increase to 700 million tons of ammonia 2050 in this 1.5 degree pathway. And you see the bulk, the new markets emerging. So the shipping market could potentially be very significant, and this hydrogen carrier market that I mentioned. So this is driving a lot of the activities right now in this sector. And as I said, we see the production change, the production technologies. We think that renewables-based, especially green hydrogen-based ammonia production, will become the dominant form of ammonia production going forward, driven by cost reduction for renewable power and driven by cost reduction for the hydrogen electrolyzers. So these are the two key cost components at this moment. And here you see the projected cost going forward. So at the moment, this renewable ammonia can be produced at around $1,000 per ton. In fact, that is slightly below today's spot price for ammonia, which is very high at the moment because of the high natural gas prices. So that's unusually high. The longer term, these costs for, let's say, gray and blue ammonia are expected to come down again. But even longer term, we think the cost reduction potential for renewable ammonia is much more significant, and therefore the bulk of production will shift to renewable ammonia because of the falling cost and because of the reduced CO2 emissions. And then another example is renewable methanol. We did a study on that last year. So there are two main production routes. There's you can use biomass, or again you can work from green hydrogen in combination with CO2 and produce methanol. Also a lot of activity in this field, and again also emerging markets. So methanol again as a shipping fuel, also methanol as a building block for other petrochemicals or plastics and fibers. So we expect also in this case that there is potential to grow the market fivefold and to shift to clean production. For the e-methanol, it's a little bit of a question, where will that production take place? Because you need also let's say clean CO2, either from biomass sources or from direct air capture. Probably it will be a mix of production sites in the desert and production sites close to for example, maybe pulp mills or other types of processes where biomass CO2 is being released. And also in this case, today, biomass-based methanol production is the cheapest form of clean methanol, but we think that the cost reduction potential for the green hydrogen-based production is more significant and that the cost can come down to similar levels. And longer term, for both types of production technologies, we see long-term cost levels in the order of $250 to $600 per ton. And a final product I wanted to discuss is steel. So steel production continues to grow rapidly worldwide. China is now by far the largest world steel producer. The primary production route, blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace, is still the dominant one, nearly 3/4 of global production. There is about 2,000 steel plants worldwide, but around 500 of these are, let's say, large plants. So that's the plants where you need to reduce emissions. There are a number of strategies how to do that. A number of these strategies have been on the table for a long time, but is new is this direct reduced iron based on hydrogen. That is a development from recent years. So again, it's low-cost green hydrogen that is driving all of this, and there is most activity right now. CCS is a big question mark. We've been talking about it for 30 years. Not much has happened, and the outlook is not very good right now. So emphasis has really focused to this DRI based production routes. The sector is also a bit particular because of the carbon accounting. Well, there's a lot of CO2 contained in the blast furnace gas, which is again used for power generation. You can allocate that CO2 to either to the steel industry or to the power sector industry. It makes about a third in the difference in emissions of the sector. Scrap recycling always comes up as an option, but of course the amount of scrap is limited. You cannot at random generate scrap. Scrap depends on consumption of steel. Decades ago, and I showed you how steel production has increased over the last 2 decades. So scrap recycling cannot fully decarbonize this sector. So hydrogen-based DRI is very much at the top of the list right now. There is a lot of projects in Europe at the moment. There's also interest to develop new hydrogen-based DRI production close to the iron ore mining sites. So there is interest in Brazil from Vale, in Australia, for example, Fortescue is very active. There was 2 weeks ago an announcement from Arcelor that they were now going to look into such strategy in Mauritania. So you may see that the future location choice of let's say iron making processes is different from today's location choice, that it will be much closer to the iron ore mines, because that's also where the low-cost hydrogen production potential is. And then the DRI can be shipped worldwide and further processed. So my last slide, I think there is a good understanding of the technology solutions for net zero. As said, we need significant upscaling of the renewable energy to make all of this happen, be it direct electrification, be it the use of green hydrogen, be it the use of sustainable biomass. There is still a cost issue. There's a short-term cost issue, but also a longer-term cost issue. So we need carbon pricing, but we also need some kind of mechanism to ensure competitiveness of these clean products. Carbon border adjustment mechanisms can play a role, but of course need to be properly designed. That is an ongoing discussion now. We need to make sure that clean commodities, clean industrial commodities are properly certified, so you know what you buy. So that is another currently hot topic where there's a lot of activity. We're also involved in some of these discussions. And of course, we have to see then longer term, where will that industry be located? Probably the availability of low-cost renewables is one factor, but of course there are many other factors that need to be considered when you make an investment decision. So we're working currently with G7, with G20, with World Economic Forum, with other partners in seeing how to put this into practice. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dolf. It was very, very impressive, very informative, and giving moral to people. Yes, it's possible. This decarbonization industry will be possible. Thank you very much for this.